Yeah, I come from men that stand. I'm in the field and you just sit in the stands. Take that bass out your voice. If you ain't got no gun in your hand, I do what I want. And you don't even do what you can, you do what you told. I got no love for my foes. They can mimic my delivery and copy my prose. But what they can't comprehend is how I stick to this code. It's either in you or not. It's not the kicks and the clothes. They ain't cut from the same cloth. Can't come from the same loom. Fit in similar shapes or even sit in the same room. Confusing authenticity with part of the costume. I'm teaching gifted children. You can't come in this classroom.
Dare to struggle, dare to win.
What's up?
Oh my!
Okay.
Oh, one of us did.
I'm back.
What up, though? What up, though? Good people.
What up,
Cool.
though?
How y'all feeling?
Feeling good as I can in this capitalistic world.
Man, I'm feeling fair for a nerd.
Fair for a nerd. You be saying fit for a nerd, but fair for a nerd. Go ahead.
For a nerd, man.
Yeah.
I'm good fair for a nerd. You know.
I'm trying to get fit myself. I got bike, trying to get in shape, get strong out here so I can fight in the revolution and whatnot.
Yeah, you say you named it Beauty, right?
Yeah, I really call her Butte, but it's short for Beauty.
Yeah, you gonna make now. You just inspired me to name my bike. I'm gonna call him Soldier.
I like that. Nice. Well, what's up, everybody? What's up, everyone in the chat? I am Cherie Danielle. This is Dr. Yusef, Bunchy, Shakur. We got Geechee, y'all, and we are the Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win podcast, where we bring you Black radical politics from a CMB vantage point. Now, we know that all of y'all are politicized out here on Black Liberation Media. Y'all watch us weekly, but if you could do us a solid favor and share that link with someone who needs to get a little bit more politicized, so they can find out about our show and get in the conversation and whatnot. Speaking of not politicized, I guess we're going to do a light build right now on our boy Cory Booker. Looks like a lot of people are really excited about his big I'm blanking out on what it's even called, what he did yesterday for 24 hours. He broke the racist record.
It was
the filibuster.
I was like, filibuster, that's like not a word that I'm used to using, but yeah. So yeah, thoughts on that?
I'm trying to pull up this. I forgot to. Oops, I wasn't prepared. I was trying to pull up this. I posted something. So one of my homeboys from Charleston, which this normally happens, as y'all always know. Whenever, I guess I won't show it. Oh well, because I'm not logging. But whenever something like this happens, and a popular person does a thing, everybody starts to go dig in their picture book and be like, post a picture with that person. Like, yeah, I've been on this person. And so what I did was I just kind of wrote this little response to it, and it started out sharing like how I think, our problem is we never really get into politics, and then I say policy. We stay at the shallow end of the pool and just center people's personalities, parties, and pigment. And so then I just started reading, Cory Booker and how he's also connected to Betsy DeVos, who wanted to privatize public education or education so that it could further disenfranchise and marginalize African and other working people. And although he's not for Trump, he's actually still in support of Trump's politics. And I likened it to what we talked about last week, I think, when one of those Trump supporters said, like, yo, Trump going 55 miles per hour. I like it better if he was only going 20. So like he's still headed in the same direction. He just has a different approach and different rhetoric. So I was trying to lay that out in the post. And so far there's a little bit of tizzy that I'm getting, but nobody kind of like addressing it, because everything that I put down there you can like search and you can't really argue it. So it'll only be emotional response if people try to argue against it. So that's kind of
that poor person bubble. They was like, I got a picture with the Cory Booker. And you're like, sorry to burst your bubble.
No.
But as soon as I saw that, like, you know what I tend to, when people get really excited about something, like politically, I kind of like, now where I'm at, like my red flags always kind of go up because I'm just like, wait a second. Democrats, Corey, like, I've known of him for a while, but I and I don't follow him deeply, but I just knew that like there couldn't be something that great that he had done so quickly, like overnight, the way people were, championing for him. And so I was just like, okay, let me wait a second before I look more into it. And it's very similar to the Jasmine Crockett conversation that's happening right now. There's like a whole thing happening with her right now on TikTok because a popular streamer, a person on TikTok said some comments about how, yeah, it seems like she's performative and she took her beach blonde butch queen or whatever she said about that girl, like, and has really made that like her thing. She had the whole Hot Wheels scandal where she was like making fun of kind of handicapped people to make fun of somebody else in office, and so a lot of people felt the need to defend Jasmine and go get this girl and like, oh, you're being anti-black, how dare you talk about this woman that's doing so good by people. Now they're pulling up all the time she was defending the relationship that we have with Israel, and she had like there's a clip of her just really sounding ridiculous of like, oh, well, this existed before I got here and it's gonna exist after I got here. It's like, aren't you supposed to be the party of change? Like, why are you saying that this is gonna exist after you're here? Like, so I think, yeah, she falls into that same boat as Cory Booker, where it's like, it's progressive, but only to a certain degree. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know you from the city of Kwame. No, I'm joking. But you from Kwame, and Kwame is, he was a solid dude, I think, politically or even aesthetically. But sometimes their politics be really jacked up. And whenever it's time for you to critique a black political figure who's not beholden to black struggle, like what's your experience or even your thoughts around taking people off that drug of black representation?
Whew, man, that's a conversation over drinks, good brother. That's a profound question because before Kwame, there's Coleman Young, and Coleman Young is treated like Jesus, Allah, Buddha here in Detroit. So it's very, you have to be very mindful of what you say and what rooms and things, because people really will cut you because they think that he did some miraculous things. And I think we have to be careful where we impose revolutionary idealistic ideas or practice on individuals. I think this is in relationship to the racial component, the racializing of a black man or black woman as like that's freedom or that's liberation, and that's a part of struggle, but it's not the end all. Kwame came out of the Shrine of Black Madonna, his father, his mother, things of that nature. But by the time he came adult, he wasn't representing those politics per se. So I think we just, our politics and our movement is so behind the 8 ball that electoral politics, electoral movement is at the forefront. So any criticism that we offer it will be interpreted as hating or what are you doing, etc.
Yeah, I as you say that, I'm like, and y'all got to know that I'm fresh off of August Nip's book, The Ballot, The Streets of Both, and for the last 7 or 8 years, me and Asafo, before he transitioned 2 years ago, was really trying to tactically work with electoral politics as a methods of political education, exposing contradictions and myths. And I actually never had, maybe he had, he's not alive for me to ask him, but maybe he had the language, but I never knew like this is the part of Lenin, Marx, and Engels that all radicals just skip over. A revolutionary way to use electoral politics as opposed to using electoral politics to achieve revolution. And that might sound like it's the same, but it's very nuanced and important that people engage that, because when we talk about not getting in front of the people or not getting too far in front of the people, like you have to meet the people where they're at. And so if you can't spit the policies that you rock with and the things that helps you achieve the social order that you claim that you're about, like you really have nothing to grapple with before the people. So whenever you're going to shoot down a Cory Booker, if you can't explicitly talk about the policies that you're against, you're going to be arguing about a pigment, right? So so again, what I was trying to lay out there is like, and Mondo Wise had a post with him and they're like, well, this is why we're not clapping, because in 2019, he backed the anti-BDS legislation. And 2019, he also told AIPAC, I forget thee, O Israel, right? And then he said something else. The part of that, you can go check it out. But one thing, he was always an advocate for privatizing education system. And so I believe we still have to have a real conversation around private versus public, right? Including personal property versus private property. But the things that are nationalized or public, we benefit from, and we know that we benefit from, but we don't conceptualize that there are other things that can be public as well, right? Be it utilities and other stuff. And so I just think when we able to grapple with at revolutionaries, what policies help us achieve the particular social order we want, this revolution we claim to want, like then we can kind of like put these things out before the people and have them choose what they fucking with and what they're not fucking with. And I just think we drop the ball when we don't do that. So
yeah, I agree, and it's like I go through a similar thing where, you know, what Yusuf was talking about, where, you know, the second you like criticize, you be like, well, what are you doing, you know? Because I literally had somebody respond to me with that when I was saying something about Jasmine Crockett, because like I said, everybody was making these videos because now the girl that criticized Jasmine Crockett is being deemed as this anti-black. She doesn't want to see black women win, you know, and they've like kind of, why does my camera keep going out? But they've weaponized, you know, massage noir with her situation. And they're like, this is not massage noir, you know, like this is, you know, this woman is putting on a performance and she's not who she says she is, but it always gets the backlash of like, what are you doing? You know, and it's just like, if you tell them what you're doing, it's not going to seem like enough for them. But like I said, it's like people have a limited amount. When even somebody in the comments was like, how about you run for office then? It's just like, I like, of course, because running for office is the only way to create change, you know. You're
I want to say real quick, I think the challenge in relationship to our political consciousness and our political reality, and they're always at war with each other, and Geechee is kind of on that path. Like the more we can break things apart and put them in different categories, because we put everything together, like Cory Booker, like the Cory Booker of last night, right? It makes absolutely great sense in the chaos of what we are, because no one else is supposedly standing up against Trump or speaking out against Trump. So from that end, people are going to absorb it for this moment. But then we have short-term memory, or we may not know in general all the other things. And so how do we break those things down? And that's the purpose of educating. But to educate, we have to be educated too of what's going on to be able to break those things. And then also picking like what ideological fights are worth fighting in terms of our energy, our time, and our commitment.
Yeah, I think. Oh, sorry, man.
No, just real quick. Like this, Ashley Knuckles make a good point. Like he couldn't he have done that during the budget talks? So there wasn't even I think they were saying there wasn't even no bills on the. There wasn't no bills.
Yeah, they were saying it should have happened a couple of weeks ago. That there was like that would have been a better time if he was really trying to like make a difference. Like you did it after like, you know, kind of stuff is already kind of being pushed forward and whatnot. And then I think one of the biggest contradictions you mentioned, and, you know, and I think because I saw that same thing too, where it listed why we're not clapping for Cory, where it talked about the whole, you know, thing in his attitude towards education, which everybody was outraged about last week. Literally just last week, it was all the headlines, old Department of Education getting shut down, and now you're cheering on somebody who has been like for this in a sense. So it's just like, it's a very big contradiction, you know.
Listen, son was trying to get a record book. He was trying to hit the record book, and that's kind of what he was focused on. I don't think he was focused on anything serious, but I think we should focus on something serious. What you about to say, Yusuf?
I was gonna say you pretty much is a clown show.
Yeah, political theater. But look, Yusuf got a good topic for us to talk about. So you gonna be ready for this topic. Y'all saw it on the flyer that Cherie cooked up like a drug dealer. So we're gonna take a break. We will be right back and lead us into this conversation.
I'm throwing copper at the coppers, but I'm shaking like Morocco. Say my prayers with the pistol, serve the sinners with the chopper. All my buddies got it from scratch. My house had Betty Crocker. His mama owned D. He ain't even get no shot up. Profit is invisible. Profit come from product. He think it buffet. He can't comprehend no potluck. God bless the child with his own powder to rock.
We back, good people. This week's conversation topic is to die for the people or to live for the people. And why this topic is really something that I've been chewing on for quite some time. And it's kind of like related to what we talked about in other shows, where a lot of us are trying to reinvent the Black Panther Party of the 21st century. In particular, this idea of to die for the people. And I've seen it often used so much where it really became a weapon. Like, you ain't dying for the people, you ain't living for the, and you hear it in Huey. I think Huey kind of popularized it in his speech and others. And I'm not saying, like, again, in any struggle that may happen, right? But I think where it has become like this Black martyr syndrome, in the sense of, like Martin, Malcolm X, where Malcolm knew he said it, like, hey man, they may kill me. And why didn't you do other things? Versus, did you have to go embrace? I think King said some things of that nature. And is where we just lose or retire or whatnot. And so I think just wanted to open up and explore it, because it really shouldn't be to die for the people, but to live for the people. Because if we live for the people, we're able to produce and be able to do what we need to in that process. If we die, and then just making, like, I don't think we really comprehend what is a martyr, because like tomorrow or this week, there will be the celebration of King's assassination, as well as the assassination of Bobby Hutton. So yeah, that's, we can get into this, man. I think this is a very profound discussion can happen.
No, I thank you for facilitating it. So prior to we kind of laid out, some of Huey's writing, tapped into Fred Hampton, and then even some other people. But I think it's important to, like, kind of frame, at least from how I understand, what was being said and what's the thrust for the statement, right? And so the conversation possibly could be centered around discussing where this thought was coming from, and Huey was grappling with it back in 68 and 70, right? And at the time when he was trapped in the cage, somebody slid a magazine under his cell, because he didn't have access to any other political writings other than the shit done with his case. So in studying what he saw, or looking at what he saw, was Durkheim's concept or theory around suicide, and how it's rooted in, like, individual choices, and but they have external and politically created environments that cause the thing, as opposed to it just being an individual choice. And so if he's working from that concept to create this idea of, like, revolutionary suicide, his thrust, from my understanding, is, like, victims cease to fight for particular forms of oppression, and they what I call is the full response to the hegemony, and they instead say, like, like, I won't fight against this thing which could lead me to dying. Instead, I will just give up myself dying. So he kind of say, like, voluntary suicide would be not doing anything and letting the people killing you. And then this revolutionary suicide, or to die for the people, is like, you're really fighting to live, but in fighting to live, you know that there's a high chance of you dying, right? And so I guess that's how I always had the framing of it, like, instead of hoping something will change, right? You're like, I know that the peace that I want, I actually fight for it, and me fighting for that peace can risk me losing my life. But Cherie, I don't know if you have opening thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I reflect on a lot. I think it's my artistic Scorpio way outlook that I look at life. Because that's, and I know people not as into astrology over here sometimes, but the theme of Scorpio is rebirth. So I think in my life, I've always looked at things as like a rebirth. So I've always looked at certain parts of me having to die in order for certain things to live and rebuild. So I think even as like an activist artist, that's kind of how I rationalize a lot of like decisions that I made within this past year, really, and as to why I'm going to do it and why it makes sense, and knowing the things that I'm kind of giving up, but to me, not like physically die, but I had to like commit some sort of a suicide on a lot of the ways that I thought previously, and a lot of my intentions with things. I think the biggest thing was the way my approach to my art. I had to kind of just kill everything that I had spent maybe 20 years building, as far as me being this actress, performer, and all these things that I saw myself achieving. All of that kind of had to die once I realized the true intent of art and the real reason of why I do what I do, and how I wasn't truly walking in the path, or I kind of got caught up in the Hollywood dream of it all and lost the track of like, what good is putting out art or chasing a dream that is going to only benefit maybe me or my family. I'd rather sacrifice not whatever I lose, not going for that, to make things that I know, art that is challenging, art that even I don't even like doing half the time because I feel so myself trying to create it. I'd rather go through that and not be as popular or not make a lot of money or get my family rich or whatever, than continue to go on the track that I was going and maybe get that, maybe. But I felt like if I did, I would always kind of have this itching of like, I'm not doing right by my people. Like I'm not, so that's what I think, where it's like I'm choosing to live for my people and kind of let what I had previously worked so hard for die. So that's kind of how I view it in a metaphorical sense, as a cultural worker.
No, I think both what you guys said is very essential to the conversation, but also like what's our good brother Herman, like how many people are really reading and really digesting what they're reading, as you did, Geechee, and breaking it down, but where we see things and we add it to our lexicon and we repeat it. And like I said, I think that's where the weapon of that becomes as a result of the bad behavior, the bad practice, and versus, because again, let's be clear, death is part of struggle, death is part of life. And if you believe in something as strongly as liberations, revolution, etc., death is part of that. I wish I had George Jackson Blood in My Eye in front of me. There's this part where I forget the author, he was like, I no longer reference this individual because he's too cold. His ideology is not something that is warm. And I think that's what happens with many of us. We take something and we just get locked in. And I think it also represents what some people talk about, like the neo-nationalists, the narrowness of the struggle. And I'll just conclude on this. Like when we think about Malcolm, we tend to forget, after his house got bombed, he was on the next plane to Detroit. He was on the next plane to Detroit, versus sitting his ass down and hanging with his family. We can't go back and rewrite history. However, how do we, like, the commitment, would it make him seem less committed if he had sat down to be able to calm his nerves, to be able to live? And I think, is it part of that masculinity thing that pushes us that we have to be that ultimate soldier, that ultimate guerrilla, that ultimate revolutionary or Marxist and things? Just a thought.
I mean, I wonder if it, because as we think about like, and I'm gonna pull up where one of the phrases that you shared was the revolutionary is a doomed man, and that comes from one of the anarchists, from a Russian anarchist that Huey borrowed it. And I think sometimes it's important to put those things within some level of context, but also just like, so when you think about the recent situation in Palestine, when people, they either die or they fight with a chance to win and potentially high risk of dying. And so I think when you're back against the wall, it might be a little different. But the idea of opposing a particular force that will drive you to self-murder or kill you through slow violence, right? So there's like this insidious or immediate response of unaliving yourself, right? And so when, again, I think I developed this concept or thought process from studying Amos Wilson more so, but I do remember like some of what Huey was saying. But when I think about like the four responses, the white terrorism or hegemony, you have like the homicidal response. You could take that anger and that pain and that violence that happened to you, and you can turn that on other people. And you can do that violently, physically. You can assassinate people's characters. You can have that dog eat dog mentality among the people who also oppress. Or you can have the suicidal response that allows you to internalize a lot of stuff, and you can either take your life immediately or take your life insidiously, including engaging in escapisms, careerisms, entrepreneurship, religious hocus pocus shit, and allow yourself to be slow murdered as opposed to respond to your conditions. You have the assimilationist, the person who think that they could just close their proximity to whiteness and eventually that will erase them away from the pain, whatever it takes that they think that will do that. Or the person who literally sees peace. The only pathway to peace is struggle or something that you have to fight for, which also could put you on the brink of not being here anymore, because the people who are in control of you, if they're trying to slow violently kill you, imagine what they would do as you resist. So I think this idea, and I'm gonna pull it up real quick, that whenever this person is saying the revolutionary is a doom man, right down here, the duties of a revolutionary towards himself, the revolutionary is a doomed man. He has no personal interests, no business affairs, no emotions, no attachments, no property, and no name. Everything in him is wholly absorbed in the single thought and the single passion of revolution. And then the next one is the revolutionary knows that in the very depths of his being, not only in his words, but also in his deed, he has broken all bonds which tie him to the social order and the civilized world with all its laws, moralities, customs. And so there's a detachment. Like obviously somebody said in the chat, like we're supposed to get resources, but I don't know that you should get those resources at the expenses of morals, the people, or anything else. Like that should have to be something that you were willing to like put your life on the line. Even as Malcolm said, the young people need to have something that they're willing to bleed for. And so I just think phrasing that is important. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the King quote that I always love, like a man not willing to die for something is not fit to live. So yeah, I mean, I think there has to be like some level of sacrifice and some understanding of the sacrifice that you were making and like acceptance of that, you know, and struggle around that. And I think that is hard today because we're very much, you know, propagandized to not want struggle, you know, in many ways. You know, there's like the whole trend of like people acting like their ancestors are telling them not to march anymore or do anything active anymore. Even in romantically, there's like this whole thing of like nobody wants struggle love, you know, and all these things. So I think yeah, even the way the patriarchy affects me as a woman and then being in this space, I think about that often of like, wow, I really, and I joke with my friend about this often, is like, I really could have chose like the soft life, give me a buzz down, get a man to take care of me and like have this easy going, you know, homemaker woman crap, you know, and just go on, you know, and have my designer bags and all that. But it's like, and I think people view me as that too. Like, why did she choose this route? You know, like, but but yeah, you know, and I think about that often because I think so much, and you know, for me coming from the middle class, you know, family, parents being who they are, it's like, you know, what got in her to she really just kind of chose to make her life harder than it needed to be. And it's like, yeah, you know, I'm very much aware of that, but I think, like I said, it comes down to like the things that you're for and what you're willing to tolerate. Like I tried to play that role many times and it kept having, you know, hiccups in it where it's just like, how can y'all, you know, like y'all like this for real? Like y'all not, you know, like this makes you feel good. This situation, you know, these types of men, you know, or being with what do they call? What does Kevin Samuels call a high value man? Y'all really think that's high value? You know, so I think I think it's definitely just kind of understanding that, like, yeah, on the outside it does look like you're missing out on all this thing, but on the inside, morally, like, you know, there's gonna always be that conflict if you don't truly walk the path that you're supposed to walk on, you know, because you always feel kind of when you're not doing those things you're supposed to do. But yeah.
So, Geechee, that person that you just shared, that's who George was referencing, saying his word. At one point, I think inside of that brother and other letters, he was like, yeah. And then he was reflecting, like, I think my man is a little too cold, just a little too dry. And I think to Cherie's point around sacrifice, like, I think like we have to unpack that. And unpacking that is, if we have the opportunity to live, to fight another day, do we do that? Do I know the fact that they're coming to bomb my house? Do I just sit there, and if I got an opportunity to escape, do I not escape? Does that make me less revolutionary? That makes me less?
Go ahead.
It reminds me of that thing. Remember that guy that I think it was a thing somebody made that post and they were talking about the chairman at Huru, Mali, and they were talking about when they were talking about him and they were acting as though people shouldn't be happy. Remember when he beat, you know, the trial, they were like saying, you know, if he's supposed to be a revolutionary, like almost like he shouldn't be happy that he's not going to jail, or people shouldn't be happy that he's not going to jail. And I think that's where it's kind of like people get weird about it. Like, I don't think, you know, I do think that there are certain concepts that people really don't understand, like, you know, yeah, what is worthy to be sacrificed and what is necessary, and like all these other things. Like, even when we talk about personal boycotts a lot, Geechee and whatnot, we were like, oh, well, you're a revolutionary, but you have an iPhone, or, you know, you're supposed to be this, you know, militant woman, but you wear makeup and do things or whatever, you know. So there's a lot of that also where like people kind of go into this extremism of like trying to make like, oh, you're a socialist, how can you know, be into this or have these things, or why do you buy stuff, you know? And it's, so I think that's kind of the lines of what he's talking about, where it's like, you should still be, you know what I'm saying? These things don't reflect your actual work that's being done, or like, if I didn't do those things, it's not going to change the overall state of my people, because the fact that buying power isn't a real thing anyway. So it's just kind of like,
Yeah, so I don't know that I would, the way in which that question is asked, I'm not sure that I would ask that question, and not that you are doing this, insinuate that's what some of our people did. Like, I wouldn't insinuate that, oh, Malcolm said, oh, they're going to bomb my house and I stay there. But more so of like.
Malcolm did do that though. Not the bombing, the fact that he knew that he met his grave. He knew he didn't allow the people to get searched. He knew the possibility of he was going to get killed.
Well, I think that's a couple of different things though. What I'm saying is like, you could know, huh?
What do you mean?
I'm about to explain. He didn't die in a house bomb, right?
He died on the stage where he got shot.
Right. So what I'm saying is, when you do know the likelihood of you being killed, does that mean like you don't do the work anymore, or you stop, you go somewhere else? That's what I'm saying. Like, I want to make sure that it's not being framed in a way like, oh, no, this is gonna happen. Let me just finish this point.
You're misframing me though. You're misframing what I said.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, real quick. I promise. That's why I said I'm not saying that you're saying this. That was what I led with. I'm not saying that you're saying this, but I want to make sure that it's not received that way. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying that you said that. So what I'm saying is, when you say like if somebody is going to bomb your house, you don't stay in your house because you know they're going to bomb your house. I'm just making sure that it's not framed the way like Malcolm just walked into, or anybody just walked into a thing, because again, if the where the person got killed, the only way that he wouldn't have been killed that day is if he wouldn't have show up at the speaker, or he would have stopped talking. Then I think I don't know if you mentioned this, but people did mention that there are people that said, Malcolm, you should come stay here. Kwame Nkrumah, whatever, he could have moved to Africa. So does that mean that because he didn't go there, like, he walked himself into a thing? I don't know that the conversation would be fair if it's positioned to where like we're martyring ourselves, knowing that you can be harmed because of the situation you're in and still doing what you got to do. I don't know. I just think that's more honorable than it's not honorable. Like, you can get popped doing anything that you're doing today, but are you going to stop doing it? You're going to stop speaking a particular way? I'm not sure. Are you going to have more security? Of course. But yeah, go ahead.
I hear what you're saying, but that's not what I'm implying. And I think the struggle itself implies, again, do you fight to live another day? And the ultimate thing is in this struggle, as intensified as it is, there's the possibility of some form of persecution. That persecution can be death, incarceration, multiple things. But using Malcolm as an example, you're right. It wasn't the house, but however, we go back and we pull the evidence and the research, Malcolm knew that death was near. He said it multiple times. And you're right. Like it's not that you don't stop doing the work, but do you become more cautious? Do you take more steps to protect yourself and things? I think he was tired in the sense of, again, when he made the decision not to have the people search, which was like his people was like, because that was the first time he had never done that before, and the other time he'd done that of searching whatever. But that was just one example. I mean, with Fred, there was other people like, hey, Fred, you should come here and go there. And I think, again, just me as a man, I think it was part of that ego, the ego of a man. Like, I gotta go out. Like, I'm not afraid to die. I'm not saying we should be afraid of dying, but I'm saying, like, are we actually going out on our terms, or are we going out on someone else's term?
I mean, yeah, I think that's the difference between, I think what I was trying to get at earlier. Oh, sorry, I was reading the thing. But yeah, that's what I was going at earlier. And that's why we always talk about the difference between actually being in community versus individual and trying, because I think a lot of times people will be individually inspired by like a Martin, a Malcolm, a Sada, or whoever, and they're not necessarily in community. And, there may be, individual acts like, people doing things like a Derek Chauvin or a Luigi or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Where it's like, like obviously, we want to see through whatever happens with Luigi and whatnot. And we understand why Derek Chauvin did what he did. But at the same time, it's understanding that doesn't always have to be the choice when it comes to like, I'm trying to now become this individual martyr in a sense for the people. Because there still is, Derek Chauvin still, I mean, like, this isn't to, knock what he did and why he did it, but people in that same situation that are in the military that become radicalized can also leave the military and then use whatever things they develop in the military to help the people. And that's a version of, like a death of who you used to be in the same way, as opposed to like, committing the suicide and having like an actual act done, like I think that's still noble if somebody comes to realization that's in the military that this isn't the fight that they want to do, and then they take that fight to the streets for the people, that's a promise act too. Like that shouldn't be like, oh, well, you should now just off yourself if you realize you get what I'm saying? I'm not saying anybody really thinks that, but I just know when people are in, like, I know the difference between, I guess, being in a group and studying these things of how we as a people or at large can commit change and have a revolution, as opposed to an individual reading things and getting inspired and then feeling moved to like go do this huge act, So
yeah, so I think we should get to some comments and try to pull us in the questions. But before that, I want to go to Fred Hampton quote because
Sorry, maybe I said the wrong name. I apologize. Aaron Bushnell. I'm sorry. I'm saying Eric Bushnell. Sorry, my bad. I get names confused.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks for that. So, Fred Hampton said, let me say, in the spirit of liberation, I've been gone for a little while. At least my body's been gone for a little while, but I'm back now, and I believe that I'm back to stay. Again, spirit of revolution. This one body is just a conduit of it, but the spirit is going to stay even if the body goes. I believe that I'm going to do my job, and I believe that I was born not to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die in a car wreck. I don't believe I'm going to die slipping on a piece of ice. I don't believe I'm going to die because I got a bad heart. I don't believe I'm going to die because of lung cancer. I believe that I'm going to be able to die doing the things I was born to do. I believe that I'm going to be able to die high off the people. I believe that I will be able to die as a revolutionary in the international revolutionary proletarian struggle. And I hope that each one of you will be able to die in the international proletarian revolutionary struggle, or you will be able to live in it. And I think that struggle's going to come. So again, this thing ain't no dying for dying's sake. It's dying because of one being prepared to die to fight for a particular thing that we all want, which is to live. But currently, the way things are set up, niggas ain't living at all. But go ahead.
No, I say like, I mean, I was like a poem, and I've quoted parts of that poem, and I think highly of Fred. And if people don't have the political consciousness, to your point, Geechee, of the struggle of death that comes with the struggle, it's easy to get caught up on, let me rush out here to die. So let's examine Lil Bobby Hudson's death, and most people don't talk about that. It was the fault of Elger Cleaver. Elger Cleaver bullied all those folks to come out and let's go out and try to do something on behalf of King assassination, and then, which was the most stupidest shit ever. All the police was out there was anticipating them to do something. That was irresponsible, because this idea I had to go out and prove that I'm ready to die for the people versus living for the people. And in the process, if we get in the gun shootout, then we just get in the fucking gun shootout, and I die. Like, those are two different dynamics.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry, just listening to you, I think reminds me a lot of when I talk to my dad, and he's always like afraid I'm gonna end up in jail or something, or like, and just that, and I could be saying anything where it's like, I'm literally just talking about going to a potluck with my org or something like that. And it's always like, okay, well, don't do nothing stupid, don't do nothing crazy. It's like, it's always those sort of things that like he hears. And I think that's sometimes in some ways, like, I know I'm not saying you mean it like that, but I think people get on that path of thinking, and it becomes a little counterinsurgent sometimes, because they'll, they're like afraid to get involved or learn or join anything, because they look at the people that got, caught up in different things for whatever reason, and, ended up in a particular situation, as to like understanding your limits and what you're doing at certain times and why you're doing it, and still understanding that, that's what I told my dad, where it's like, no, I'm not going to go around do anything that I think would intentionally get me to jail. But if I'm protesting and all of a sudden they're just like, oh, we're just going to arrest all y'all, like that has, or even if I do a show and I'm saying or talking about a subject that, like, especially now with the whole freedom of speech thing, where people are like, you can't talk about that. And I'm like literally penalized for talking about a certain subject or saying a specific word, like, then I think to me that's a just thing, as opposed to like, I don't have it in me to like go and, rob the store to like help a homeless person. Like, I don't have that in me, but, like I said, as far as like the things that I know that I'm doing in my walk, at any point that becomes like something where you could get penalized from the law, I mean, I think at that point, not to quote, I know we don't like John Lewis that much, but in my eyes, it's like good trouble, like, or whatever, Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a couple different conversations that is being had here. And so in terms, like, even with Martin Luther King, right? Wasn't it a non nonviolent tactic that people are assuming that was his ideology. But this tactic was like, we're not going to blindly lead y'all out here to be slaughtered and give these people even more reason to do this. So there's a tactic that also has escalation that follows. So this person is obviously trying to preserve his life, but he's also doing the work. So I think there are opportunistic and people who are manipulating young people into doing some dumb shit. Like I could agree to that.
So I have a follow-up question. So when you was referencing King, right? And you're talking about doing the work, King, like elaborate, what do you constitute as the work that he was doing and how he was doing the work?
So internationalizing the struggle, politicizing the people, and making up for any type of misdirection or misinformation that he might have been associated with. Organizing people to change their material conditions. That would be the work that King was doing.
And King, similar to Malcolm, knew that he was fucking facing his last days as well, right? But I agree with you in theory and practice. Like, if you're committed to the struggle, if you're committed as a revolutionary, nationalist, Marxist, whatever that title is that you hold, you show up in that way, right?
But even if you're not, like, because remember with Malcolm, real quick, even with Malcolm, remember when Malcolm was saying that when they was on an interview and he said they asked if I knew what a conscious objective meant. I told them, this is funny, that when the white man asked me to go off somewhere and fight and maybe die to preserve the way the white man treated the black man in America, then my conscience made me object, right? Because whether you go to the military or you go into the streets or you just do regular shit, my man died on a road riding his bike to go to work. And that's that, and those environments is a political creation. So he's gonna die eventually in the context that we're put in. So rather it's in the streets, rather it's in the military. Then the next part, he says, to speculate about dying doesn't disturb me, as it might some people. I have never felt that I would live to become an old man. Even before I was a Muslim, when I was a hustler in the ghetto jungle and then a criminal in prison, it always stayed on my mind that I would die a violent death. In fact, it runs in my family. My father and most of his brothers died by violence. My father, because of what he believed in, to come right down to it, if I take the kind of things in which I believe, then add to that kind of temperament that I have, plus the 100% dedication I have to whatever I believe in, these are ingredients which make it just about impossible for me to die of an old age. So knowing the conditions that he was in, knowing what he believed and what he wanted to see, like I think anybody in that mindset, especially in the time, will know that I probably won't live to see long. In fact, even if you sit back and chill, there's data that says how long black men and black women will live. And so if your trajectory is death, it just makes logical sense to again fight for life, as opposed to frame it as like, oh, you're fighting knowing that you're going to die. Like, what the objective is life. It's just being serious about the consequences of that fight for life leads to death.
I don't think we're saying anything different besides the fact that we embody. Many of us begin to embody similar to what Malcolm said. So let me put in this context. Black youth, black boys are deemed to be dead or in prison by the age 21. Whether you're in Detroit, Chicago, that is a phrase that we all often are declared on our lives, and to the point that we internalize it. That many of us, even including myself, who's now 52, like fuck, like that's the milestone. I live past 21. But part of that is also an anti-blackness that we internalize from our oppressors. So that speech or that you just read from Malcolm, I don't know exactly what time frame that was. I think that's different than the climate that he found himself in, where he had multiple enemies breathing down his back. CIA, the American government, and the Nation of Islam, that put clouded himself in a different environment. I agree. Like we're struggling. We're struggling to live. But again, that's what I'm saying. On our terms, what does that look like? On my terms, I can go out and the sniper can shoot me literally in my chest. That's my terms. I walked out my house. I have no control of that. Those are my social conditions versus me beating on my chest and saying I'm ready to die for the people. That's the distinction I'm trying to make. Like if you're ready to die for the people, that's what you just do. You just do the work, and if it happens, it happens.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't know that I don't know that I know any serious people out there who are literally saying they dying for the people and they just rush out there and do some weird shit. Like I don't personally, I'm sure that people out there, but again, let me finish.
You just want to argue. You just want to argue.
I'm just telling you, I'm not. I'm trying to.
Maybe that's not the point. The point I'm talking about in the historically time frame where you had individuals, and we continue to perpetuate that same type of thing, to die for the people, versus saying to live for the people.
But I heard that's why if I'm if I'm talking and you interjecting, it's not that I want to argue, it's that you're arguing with what I'm trying to say. So what I'm saying is, let me finish. I'm not. Let me finish. So even as because you're saying, because whatever these people are saying is coming from a quote or something that somebody said. So even as you talk about, or we talk about our show, Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, that all comes from what Fred was saying. I'm too young to die. I want to live. I want to live a bit longer. What you did is you're dead already. And he says you have to understand that people have to pay the price for peace. Peace for those willing to fight for it. If you dare to struggle, you dare to win. So yes, there are reactionary people taking these quotes and going down there and doing silly shit. I agree. But where that shit comes from a place of sincerity that all of us should aspire to actually have that sincerity, whether we don't or not. So yes, I agree. The motherfuckers with the reactionary saying that or whatever, like, yes. But I just saying where that shit come from, who it come from. It's not probably good to equate those people with the people who are reactionary saying some wild shit. Because where that thing come from people who were serious about what they're doing and they didn't budge on the principles.
Yeah, I think.
Pastor, so you're saying because they sincere, it makes it still correct? That's what you're telling me?
It depends, right? Because I'm not just going to blatantly say if somebody's sincere to make it correct. Was Fred Hampton correct? I would say yes. Was Martin Luther King correct? Malcolm X correct? I would say yes. In fact, like one of the people said, that's why I wish we would have got to the chats, but Fred Hampton died in his bed. They killed him while he was sleeping. So the nigga wasn't talking at that time, and he wasn't like he was doing his work. And you could say, well, they could have better security, whatever you could say. Like, yes, we all could Monday, whatever they quarterbacking. Yes, there's a lot of things, but when you're in a moment as that you're in, there's a lot of shit going on that I wouldn't say that these people are thrusting to die. Like they're dying because of what they believe in and what they have the ability to achieve.
Yeah, and then I think it's like for every Fred Hampton, MLK, there's a Jihad, there's a Daruba, there's people that still, and I think what happens sometimes with the liberal counterinsurgency, that I think that's the scope that I'm kind of looking at it, is like sometimes people look at it as like getting involved or doing anything automatically means you're, it's a death sentence and you're going to have to do things that you're not ready to do. But if you don't do them, then you're not going to seem down enough. And, people kind of paint this whole thing as, as being an organizer, being in the activist space as like the second you ready to really be about it, further than showing up at like just one or two protests, you got to be one of them people that's ready to just like lay it all out. And, I just feel like, yeah, there's a lot of levels. There's, there's somewhat happy endings in some sense. There's, and at the end of the day, I mean, we don't know how we're going to die. And I think that's the whole purpose of like them saying is like, I'd rather die knowing I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, what I feel in my heart is correct, than, doing something that I don't fully connect with just survive and then, you know, getting hit by a bus or whatever the heck, you know? Like, I just feel like, you know, it's just that understanding of I have to do what I have to do, you know, regardless. But I don't think it means, because I think that's the thing, especially as a woman, I'll tap into, because I feel like we live so much of our lives is like how to, you know, make sure I'm not out at a certain time at night by myself so I don't get killed and raped or whatever. Make sure I don't wear this at a certain time. Like, my everyday life is how to navigate not being murdered, you know, raped or whatever. So it's a different, I think, way too, as like being a woman in kind of like this space or whatever. It's like, you know, I'm constantly looking at the ways to not I'm just looking at you, Geechee. But yeah, I'm constantly looking at, you know, the ways to not dive at the same time. You know, the further I get into this work or whatever, it's very much of like, okay, there is stuff to sacrifice or things, you know, there may be times where it's like, okay, I may be putting myself in harm's way. I think even as I was researching this, I was looking at, you know, hearing the stories of Fannie Lou Hamer getting beat up by the police, hearing all the stuff Assata Shakur had to go through from the police when she originally got arrested and stuff like that. So I think that is the interesting, I think, kind of mindset to put myself in, you know, not even saying that that's always going to, okay, got it out of here. But yeah, not to say that's always, you know, what it is, but I think I was just adding my 2 cents on that of like, that's an interesting frame.
So in the wrap up, we can get back to or finish up with the conversation on reflections and stuff, but we don't want to leave our comrades in KC waiting. So give us a few minutes, take a quick transition, and we'll be back with comrade from KC.
I'm throwing copper at the coppers, but I'm shaking like Morocco. Say my prayers with the pistol, serve the sinners with the chopper. All my buddies got it from scratch. My house had Betty Crocker. His mama owned D. He ain't even get no shot up. Profit is invisible. Profit come from product. He think it buffet. He can't comprehend no potluck. God bless the child with his own powder to rock.
So peace. We're back. Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, episode 12, and we are here with Comrade Avery from the KC chapter. How you feeling?
Hi, I'm good. How are y'all doing?
Doing all right. We're making it. So listen, we wanted to bring you back on, or bring y'all back on, to kind of talk about some of the work you're doing. And I know currently there's something that's happening where the KC politician wants this new tax to build a mega jail, as opposed to put it in the hands of the people who could do something that's beneficial. So tell us a little bit about what's going on there and the work.
Yeah, exactly. So this has been going on for a few years, and CMBKC has stepped into the last few months trying to prevent this new jail from coming. So basically, they're putting out a public safety sales tax. They're trying to renew it, but this time they're adding in the language that most of that money is going to go to the construction of a new jail. And they're trying to trick people by not putting the fact that it's a jail in the language on the ballot. They're telling people it's going to be for EMS and all these other things, when really it's going to be defunding EMS and defunding first responders. And they just want the people to pay for a jail that in its lifespan is going to be $800 million. We're going to be locked into a $20 million deal. And they're calling it a rehabilitation center, but that's only in the name. And we know that these types of centers are just jails. And yeah, so basically we're just trying to get out there in coalition with other Kansas City organizations to stop this from happening and to push the city to look into actual alternatives for caring for people. So that's what we're at right now.
What are you? Oh, go ahead, Yusef.
So how long this struggle been going on with you guys?
Yeah, so CMBKC, I can't remember the exact month, but we were formed around this summer or last summer. So we've been around for a few months. But the jail vote, they've been talking about it for maybe 1.5 years. An organization that I'm also in and that we're in coalition with is Decarcerate KC. And they've been fighting that for about 2 years. We got our city council to create an Alternatives to Incarceration Commission to explore other options. So we've been tracking this jail issue for a while, and we kind of pushed them to put it on the ballot. So now what we're doing is we're canvassing every weekend with other organizations like Decarcerate KC, talking to the people, which is something that the city council isn't doing, and just letting them know a jail tax is on the ballot and that we don't want that to happen. So that's what we've been doing.
So if you want to share a little bit about maybe some of the people that y'all in coalition with, and then like what stage of y'all organizing are y'all at currently with the campaign?
Yeah, so we're in coalition with one Decarcerate KC. That's the one that me and some other members of CMBKC are also in. And Decarcerate's been leading the charge on just all things with the new jail. They got that Alternatives to Incarceration Commission started, and I've been leading the canvassing campaigns. And we're in coalition with them out every Sunday, reposting their things, making social media posts along with them, flyering events with them, all those kinds of things, and promoting it at our events. So that's what we've been doing. And some other people in our coalition are KC tenants. So the housing side, we have Sunrise Movement, the environmental side. So thankfully, everybody in Kansas City, that's a picture. Everybody in Kansas City has been coming together for this jail issue, and it's been really beautiful to see. We even got some of the school, like public school people on board, because there's also a school bond that's on the ballot. For like the past 60 years, they haven't been able to pass a public school bond to get money for just the schools that are in really poor condition. So it's just like the two issues are on the ballot together, which is really ironic that we're voting for a jail, but we're also struggling to vote for school funds. So we're also bringing them in and just like highlighting that we want to, and we don't want to fund cages.
So there's the word that I think always come up with I guess when you're organizing and you're trying to like figure out or struggle for where funds should be allocated, and there's words like investment and revitalization and stuff like that. So I guess the two question is like, how do y'all, I guess, grapple with like, what do you call what the city should be doing with those funds, and are there policies that y'all are kind of like advocating for, like instead of spending the money here, we want you to do this, and this is why. Like are y'all doing that, and are y'all working with people who kind of have policy prescriptions?
Yeah, we've definitely been doing that. That's one of the big things that has been reaching people when we go out and canvas. A lot of their main questions are, well, what else are we going to do with it? Can they change the sales tax to have other more like preventative methods? So Decarcerate KC, we worked with our people who were our NC and BKC worked on a program called REACH, and that's a pre-arrest diversion program that the city passed. And right now, they're only giving that $1 million of funding when they're giving the jail potentially over its 20 years, $800 million. So it just shows they're not giving the money to preventative measures when this is a solution, and they just want to give it to the same issues over and over again. So that is one of the first like prongs of our approach of pushing them to actually fund the preventative options that are already out there instead of just leaving them to go to dust and investing in a jail. But that's the first main thing.
Yeah, hi, how you doing? So how did like other movements like that happen previously, like even within CMB? We were like here in Atlanta involved with, Stop Cop City Atlanta. I was just curious as like how you were able to kind of if you were able to take from inspiration and actions done around trying to get that stopped to like what you guys are dealing with now. And do you kind of classify this as a cop city as well, in a sense?
Yeah, we had a lot of conversations about that in the beginning of the campaign because some people were asking us, like, do we, oh yeah, and there's the article from the KC Defender asking people, do we classify this as a cop city? I think the discussion we were saying was because it's not a megaplex or there's not going to be like a cop training center, it's not technically a cop city, but along with the jail, the city jail, they're already doing a county jail right next door. So they're just going to be two jails in the middle of the city, is in a predominantly Black area right next to each other. So we consider it like a mega jail complex. And so we've been using some of that language and some of the rhetoric of like, what we want to do with our land, our neighborhoods, is create these mega complexes, and just how it's popping up all over the country, and how we have to be like Comrades in Atlanta and other cities and stand against it. So we have been using a lot of that language when we go talk to people, especially people who are aware of what's been going on around the country. Yeah, so it'll be just millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars right next to each other in two different buildings, and we just don't think it's right. And they're also building in our police department a holding cell for $16 million. So it's just like money on money on money, and people don't know that it's happening unless we go out and tell them. And whenever we tell them, they're like, "This is very dumb." So,
Can you elaborate a little bit on your last point? I'm talking about how people are relating to this subject, this issue, and as well as your organizing effort of getting people involved beyond your coalition in CNB Kansas City.
yeah. And you said how people are responding to us.
Yeah, Rashawn, yeah. And the jails are people saying, man, we need a new jails. We need to lock these motherfuckers up. Are they like,
Yeah, it's been really interesting. Most people that we talk to when we canvas or just flyering say automatically say they don't want a new jail. They say it's dumb. They say we're spending all this money on the police anyway, and we don't even have local control of our police. So most people in Kansas City actually know that because it's been brought up as like a hot topic. So people think it's dumb, and there are some people who say, "Oh, we need a jail because." There's like people have to be shipped to or people have to be they say shipped people have to be taken to surrounding counties, but then we push people to say we have to imagine something different because this is millions and millions of dollars where we could be reducing the amount of people who are arrested in the first place rather than saying no, we need to build more areas to house them. So most people have been really receptive and see it as messed up that this is what we're using our money for. There are the people who say no, we just need it because jails are inevitable, but we always try to challenge those people to think differently and to think, well, what have those jails really gotten us? The jail could be for you or the jail could be for your family member. Do you want that to happen? So that's kind of a lot of the conversations we've been having.
What are some support and ways that people can get involved and help out with the work that y'all doing as it
I
relates to
really
this?
appreciate it. I would say for this campaign, it's next week is the vote. So we're in crunch time. So we're doing a lot. There's not much if you're not in Kansas City besides voting no and like coming and canvassing with us and just seeing BKC in the long run because we're a new chapter, just like having more conversations with us, letting us, well, we're tapping into the national meetings, but also just like one-on-one conversations or just checking in on us as we grow is always nice, I would say.
Dope. Any other questions? And by all means, I know we was having a conversation that you was in the background. If you have any input on the
Yeah,
conversation.
I only joined in the last second, but I did like the point that, sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, Cherie made.
Great.
Um,
That's cool.
Cherie made. Um, a lot of the times, whenever we encounter people who hear the word activist or organizer, they get scared of it. But especially in decarcerate case or in CMBKC and decarcerate KC, when we tell people this is just about keeping us safe and protecting each other, they're on board. And especially since this Trump administration and like the emboldenedness has come out, people are really excited when they hear about CMBKC. Even people who are like white and can't join, they're like, this is something that is needed because it's just very obvious in these times that this is an appropriate response to everything that's been happening for centuries. And it's about caring for each other. It's not about anything else. So that's what I would say to that.
Thank you, comrade, for coming through. Any other things that y'all got coming up that you want to share with us? Like some things that people can tap into, social media links or anything else?
Yeah, we got our CMBKC social media. It's just on Instagram at CMB, I think .KC or at CMBKC. If you're in Kansas City, there's not too much right now that we can join in at the moment. But if you are in Kansas City, we're going to be hosting some like wellness events, some give back kickbacks. We've been hosting those at the library and giving out like diapers, parent supplies for parents, food, clothes, all those kinds of things. So if you just tap into our Instagram, you can stay updated on that, volunteer with us, join us, and just see what else we do along the way. But that's really all I had to say.
I was still on mute. Dope. Yusef, you came off mute. Did you want to say something?
No, I was gonna say thank you. We appreciate your time and the work you guys are doing.
Yeah, thank y'all so much for having us.
Yeah. Shout out to KC. Uh,
Mhm.
and we'll talk to you soon. So peace.
Bye. Talk to you soon.
All right, peace. All right. So we got to wrap. We got to wrap.
Okay, never mind.
No, go ahead. You about to say something.
I was just gonna address Esme in the comments. She was saying it's a common Haitian name. I was like, yeah, Haitians get really excited about my name often because it's French and Cameroon people.
I'll
Like
be
I had
there.
a Haitian driver and a Cameroon driver back to back in Uber last weekend, and they was so excited just off my name. I was like, oh, that's so sweet. But yeah, I was named after the Stevie Wonder song though. That's how I got my name. But,
I get the same when I'm done with Arab people, and they're like Yusuf, Yusuf, you Muslim? I'm like,
yeah,
no,
they always think I speak French. So I took French in high school, but my teachers were trash. I didn't learn the language.
like no, I'm revolutionary. Unless you gonna give me a discount, man, I'm gonna break it.
Hey, I did do that at what's veg soul on Ralph Abernathy, the oldest vegan restaurant. What's that place
Oh
called?
yeah, that one. The
Yeah,
soul vegetarian.
they Hebrew Israelite black owned businesses giving military discounts. I said, what about the discounts for the organizers, bro? And he gave me a discount. We was good to go. Oh yeah, we was good to go. So we yeah, I was in there and got my little discount, and so, yeah, we should be giving us discount for the organizers too, bro. I know military service. That's some wild shit.
You spoke up and advocated.
Yeah, I got my damn discount for my
You better get my discount. We about to die anyway. We better get our discounts while we.
All right, he said my damn discount.
We die for the people. We eat for the people.
For the people.
I'm gonna eat for the people. Wow. Any reflections though? So we had a pre-build lively conversation and also come through with the comrade. What y'all got in reflection before we bounce out?
No, I think it's an important conversation to have. I think it's a lot in there, and to break apart. I mean, especially the Fred part of being killed in the sleep. Right? It's important to remember he was poisoned, or was it not poison? But was it poison? When the guy he slipped him a Mickey in his drink,
Yeah.
and stuff. So and it's so many other factors and dynamics. A person who walked pretty much off the street got to the position to be where he was at to give the floor plans and things. So those are dynamics. Also, I heard folks in the chat clearly. Fred said to live for the people, and I'm not saying he didn't say that. And also, I was joking when I said it was a poem. It was very, very eloquently written as a poem, but I know it was a speech.
Yeah. Before you go, Cherie, I think it is important. Maybe we can even have this conversation longer, because what I think we can all admit to, when we say things, we might not say it right, or it might not be heard right, and then people respond to something differently. So even as there's a couple of comments. The question that is the revolutionary also a doomed woman? And then there's just a couple comments in there that I feel like we could have and should get to. So maybe we can have a larger conversation and invite some people who we feel that could do this conversation justice, or even more justice. But go ahead, Cherie.
That looks good. Is it just about the whole doomed woman? Yeah, I was just saying, I missed that. I didn't read the whole thing, but yeah, I was just thinking about that overall, because I just think even this study, it opened up some other questions too about, like I said, the woman's work, especially because y'all shared the stuff from Huey, and I always kind of, I'm a little weird with Huey just because, but yeah, his history of women and, the misogyny and stuff. But, I don't discredit, all that he's done, but I'm not as well versed in Huey's history, just because at the time when I first learned about him, I learned about some of the worse stuff before I learned about some of the better things. So I'm always a little when it comes to him, but it just kind of led me to kind of just really understand kind of like women's role in this. And then I was researching women's death, because mostly, in our chat, mostly male articles were shared. So I was trying to think of the closest thing to that. And that's why I put Asada there, but yeah, so I do think that there's more to that conversation around womanhood and and women in the revolution and what that means. And because I think that is often blurred of what do I sacrifice as a woman to get this thing, you know, to keep this revolution going. So yeah, I'll yield there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fascinating, and I sometimes, and this could be my own limitations, that sometimes people can say a statement to use man as in mankind or a revolutionary in general and gender the revolutionary, and it kind of like throws people off from actually listening to what's being said. Like anybody who decides to have a revolutionary endeavor got to know, right? Whether it's Asada, Safia Bakari, or whoever. And so I think sometimes, which is important, right? There, like me and Comrade Denzel was on the phone almost an hour just now talking about how fucked up your boy was. I keep forgetting the Eldridge Cleaver, right?
Yeah, and then that's and I like Huey more than Eldridge, but they're often the thoughts are often tied about, you know, women. So I just kind of am like, you know.
Yeah. So kindly finish. But basically, I'm saying, like, if somebody put a body of work out, we're examining work, and yes, their character and all these things are fucked up, but like the goal is to examine the work, because that's kind of the same argument that people say, well, I ain't studying no white people. And I'm like, all right, but if the white person lays some shit out that you're gonna have to deal with. So anyway, so I just think it's important to ground conversations in some type of, because these things come from something. None of us just started and created some new ideas or whatever. I did think it was important to, you know, kind of bring up Palestine and then other people who've been forced to fight, whether it's Vietnam or whoever else. And I think just sometimes those things are not framed well. And then my last point, because when I was reading Huey, and he started talking about how Fidel was helping people drop their romanticized ideas of the struggle whenever they was, you know, gearing up in Mexico and about to go do the thing. He was like, yo, I need y'all to, you know, tell me who's your next of kin, just in case y'all die, like who you want to be notified. And they was saying, like, everybody got quiet, because it's like the reality is like what we about to do, like it's a chance that we might not gonna make it. And so this dying for dying sake is never really the argument. It's more so of like, you know, rather you are in this society as a black man, you're a black woman, black non-gender conforming. If you're a black being in this space in an anti-black world, the trajectory of your life is premature death, and especially in this context. And I don't see a difference in I guess in the dying, other than like maybe the chances become even more more of a thing in the way in which you die, as opposed to just dying. So yeah, I think the conversation could keep going off and on, but I would love for us to have a part 2 and bring some other people in.
I think you guys also point out how to pivot is to take individuals and dissect them, right? In the sense of like the Elder Cleaver and Huey, and there's like multiple lives that they live, and depending on what version that you're reading, you can be like, oh, he's a hero or he's dope, and then the other part, I want to deal with him. And I've been saying for a while, we can't afford to throw no one away, even how disgusted it is. We need to study them. Even like I say quietly that Elder birthed a lot of these motherfuckers that's running around right now. Yeah. On their behavior, their thinking and shit. And so that's the reason we need to study to prevent from the continued birth of these type of motherfuckers that exist in our struggles.
Yeah, no, and I even to respond to the comment, I looked at Safia. I'm starting to read more about Safia's you know, responses and stuff, and you know, and I know, like I said, I don't cast, you know, stuff from Eldridge and parts of Huey's life on the whole, you know, Men of the Movement or Panther Party in general. I'm just saying that I personally struggled with that coming into like learning about Huey, because I think I had a lot more of kind of like the liberal counterinsurgent side of what was told of him at first to me. And I'm saying, so as I've gotten more into this, I've, you know, been more well-rounded in Huey's politics, but still I'm just slowly understanding more of his whole entire life, because it's a lot. He lived a big life, you know?
Yeah.
All right. So another episode now. Good stuff. Good debate. Good discussion.
There you go.
I mean, I gotta remember that you got a little debate.
Bro, listen, I'm trying to tell you, bro. You brought up this topic, and I don't know what you want me to do with the topic other than express what I feel. I ain't debating.
I'm just trying to say that I have to remember.
No.
Can I finish? Can I express myself?
Yes, but no.
Yusef, can I express myself?
If you want to.
No, what I'm trying to say is I have to remember. So debate is not the appropriate word. I correct myself on that. That your spirit leads you to approaching things and thinking things in a different framework. That's all I'm trying to say, good brother.
I'm gonna tell you about this time that I was dating this sister
Shit.
who thought. So she saw me on social media and how I engage in social media and assumed that I would like to debate and challenge people, which I do what normal people do. And one day she said, I said something, and her response was like, I'm gonna complicate things a little bit. And I'm like, okay. And pretty much meaning like I'm gonna disagree with you and I'm gonna share my disagreement with you. And I'm like, well, that's the same shit I'm doing. And I don't understand why it got to be framed as a debate, but you can complicate things a little bit. I think all of us have a spirit of sharing what we know and talking in a particular manner, hence why we are actually even on this podcast. So I don't want to be framed as no, I prepared for a conversation like everybody else, and I just come to like share what I'm saying. And then, but sometimes, like I said, I could mishear you and I could conclude that something is happening that is not really happening, and that's a flaw of I think all of us. But I'm not going to debate.
You just said what I said more adequately. I corrected myself when I said at first I said debate, and then like no, I ain't gonna say debate. That's wrong. And thank you for the example that you had given. That you're not debating. That you actually. That's why I was trying to. I didn't have the words per se of the way that you approach it, which is it's a discussion. And that
you just got people in the chat calling me Diallo's master debater, and that ain't my
They're saying a lot in the chat. What you see?
That's why I'm coming. That's why I'm saying.
And then you got people disrespecting my intelligence, like I'm a dumb nigga, like I can't speak eloquently. But this is what you do, man. You don't leave.
No, they said neurodivergent.
I do. Hold on, you said earlier sincere. I mean that is sincere.
Damn, I didn't know I was a dumb nigga. I didn't know I can't argue. Like
what I got to do with that though? I'm being.
You laid it out for me. You used the word. No, I'm joking, but go ahead, Cherie.
No, these comments, I'm just looking at all of them. I'm like, oh wow, this is really interesting. But Zinzi said something earlier that I was like, oh yeah, Zinzi. What she said about her feelings about Eldridge is yeah, I'm a chill on Eldridge. Yeah, I'm good on him. But yeah, like I said, but yeah, she said a few things. Yeah, and saying just kind of like Black women have a right. What was the one she said? Yeah, the truth, but women have a right to express how we feel of people like Eldridge. Yeah, make that decision for ourselves. So yeah, I was just saying. I hear you, Zinzi.
There's a couple. I don't know. I do think that's a good conversation too. And I don't know if it's the same conversation around like. And I don't know if I go as far to say throwing people away, but like dealing with the work and the thing that's laid out as opposed to the person's. I know that the weird shit around R. Kelly, and I'm not talking about that shit. I'm just saying like if somebody wrote a particular book on a particular topic that nobody else researched, I just don't know. Like, God forbid, Marimba Ani is known for a thing, and we'd be like, well, now we should throw Urugu away. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I think that's a good thing to study, but so I think that is a interesting conversation where I understand like you're not inviting this dude to your house and this person or whatever, and you don't even have to feel like he's anything. But if there's something that precedes him or that is like a living thing that he's done, I think it can be examined. Also, with keeping in mind, like this person is coming from this framework, kind of like we did with Huey. Like Huey was in a cell, they slid this book under his joint. He studied Durkheim, which has his own problems, and then develop a theory. So I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to kind of look through.
Yeah, I think so. I think what Zinzi is saying, like, you know, is that we should always be able to be like, F this Negro before we do that, you know, just cause, you know. So yeah. I think that's more what she's saying.
But also in terms of like throwing people away, and I just like just my framing. But even like use Elder for example, if we like you said, examine them for the flaws, because that's what I mean by not throwing them away. Not to say, hey, you have to embrace that person by no means.
Yeah, learn from them too. Learn how to like to not be that way. Yeah. So I think that that's the thing. But I just think, yeah, I think it's very much, just wanting to be like, okay, let's break down why he's effed up as we're doing all this. Like if he wrote this or did that, let's still always talk about why he's effed up and never like let that slide under the rug. I just think
man, actually, I'm about to get Geechee another good compliment. Like
No, because Zenzi just gonna destroy the shit. Just tell me after the show, bro.
Yeah, bro. No, I'm in this series. Like, even though I worked on my dissertation, like I was zero focus on something, and I got it done. But I really don't waste time on shit. Like you just don't, if it doesn't relate to me. So Geechee is the like, man, we gotta study this shit. We gotta break this shit down, and we gotta look at all sides. And like, fuck, man. But it makes sense. Like we gotta be prepared. We gotta read stuff that doesn't that big ass book that's dull and things to learn, to sharpen. And that's another aspect of political education. That's another aspect of building a political awareness. And the repetition of that is very important. So switch on that, good brother.
All right, thank you, man. Leah said I'm holding you hostage, so we're gonna get y'all up out of here. Yo, listen. Hey man, y'all have a good night. Smoke something for your boy. Drink something for you. No, I'm joking. No, thank y'all again for being here. We got an interesting coming next week, and then even so, we got a nice lineup. We're bringing in some interesting guests on interesting topics. But sometimes we'll have these type of conversations. Maybe invite panels. Maybe even pull some people from the chat who always got something to say, Zenzi. And then
and please forgive me from early for mixing up my white boys. I do that sometimes.
This girl said Derek Chauvin is a revolutionary ancestor.
I'm sorry, I forget the white boys. There's only so many white people's names I be remembering. So I was like one of the white person's names, and it was the wrong white person. I'm so sorry.
I love Zenzi. She still owe me some vegan burgers when I get back up to New York. But until then,
she told you don't start none, Geechee.
I know I ain't starting. I ain't want no smoke with that lady over there. All right, man. Y'all see y'all next week, same time, same place.
What do you say? Fight for peace.
Peace. If you're willing to fight for it.
No. Run away. Don't do it. Stay alive.